Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Point-and-Click Business Process Automation webinar. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today this afternoon. During this webinar, we're going to do a quick introduction to business process automation using Nintex and Office 365, and then we will also provide an in-depth demo of a working solution that was implemented in Nintex that shows how an expense report form and a workflow can be automated very quickly and easily using Nintex and Office 365. Before we start with the webinar, I would like to open the meeting by going over a few housekeeping items and logistical items before, again, we jump to the webinar. As far as how to ask questions and how this session will be conducted, we are targeting to have a 45-minute session, for the webinar, and then we're going to dedicate 15 minutes at the end for any questions. And then you guys may have, we'll try to answer your questions as much as we can. However, if we're not able to answer all of your questions, we'll be happy to directly get with you after the webinar and provide an answer to your ask. Also, you're always welcome to send an email to the email address that we're showing here on the screen, and then we'll be happy to get with you and answer your questions. As far as how to post your questions, if everybody can see my screen, there is a little chat box on the top that you can just click on, and then you will type in your question here. Please don't ask any questions using the audio. Just type in your questions, and again, at the end of the meeting, we'll try to answer the questions as much as we have time. Before we move on, can I confirm that everybody can see my screen? And if you cannot see my screen, please type in the chat box and let me know.
What does your screen say right now?
Say it again, I'm sorry.
What is your screen displaying now? We'll make sure I'm looking at your screen. Say webinar and Q&A session logistics?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and if you don't mind, please put your phone on mute and only communicate with us using the chat box. Okay. My name is Nushin Yatari, and I will be presenting this webinar to you guys this afternoon along with a team of Nintex experts that I have with me today. We're going to go over an introduction and introduce the team here in a moment. But before we do that, I would like to take a minute to talk about who is Optimum and what is the background that we have in Nintex. So as I mentioned, my name is Nushin Yatari. I'm the founder and managing principal of Optimum. I founded Optimum with a vision of empowering organizations to transform in the digital workspace using the people, the processes, and also technology, innovative technology. So that was the vision behind forming Optimum. And then in this process, we also became a Nintex certified partner. And I started offering Nintex services, Office 365, and SharePoint to a variety of clients in different industries. So as I mentioned, Optimum has a set of certified Nintex and Office 365 SharePoint consultants. We also have project managers who are PMP certified, and we feel like with this combination of all the experts that we have in-house, we're capable of fulfilling our clients' needs when it comes to business process automation and improvement. We are very proud of providing personalized customer service to customers. We are a small consulting company, so we're able to focus on our customers and clients, and they can provide a very customized, personalized experience to them and make sure that they're satisfied throughout the course of the process and the requirements are fully met. As I mentioned, we have a unique blend of IT, project management, process improvement, and digital marketing expertise in-house that kind of puts us in a very unique position to help our clients as a full-service consulting firm. And we always have this attitude of no project is too small. We're always here to help our clients and make sure that any needs that they have, from anything small way to larger projects, we can with those as well. So a little bit of introduction about the team who's presenting today. I already introduced myself, again, Nushin Yatari, and I do have about 8 years delivering technology and business solutions to different industries. And again, Nintex is something that we recently added to the portfolio of services in Optimum, and we're very excited about that. here with me, I have Anjali Sharma. She's an advisor as well, and then she's Nintex certified and SharePoint and Office. She's presenting today, so you will hear from her and Mike. We're just going to be exchanging and talking during the presentation. I'm going to let her say hi, and then she will be also talking more throughout the presentation.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anjali, and you're going to be hearing more from me over the next few slides. And thank you, everyone, for joining the call today.
Thank you, Anjali. I just got a note from somebody that there is a background noise. So everybody would please put your phone on mute so that there is no because we hear a background noise. Okay, back to the webinar. We also have Robert Seeger here with us. He's a solution architect and an Nintex certified consultant. He's on the call with us, and he will be answering your technical questions, again, time permitting, and anything else that we cannot answer today. He will follow up with you guys, or I will be directly to answer the questions. Okay, let's look at the agenda for today's meeting. We've already done the introduction. During the next few slides, we're going to talk about what is business process automation and why we should automate business processes. And we'll also look at how SharePoint and Office 365 enable organizations to sort of a platform for organizations to be able to do the process automation, and how some other additional tools such as Nintex are actually introduced and they're available in the market to help filling some of the gaps that 365 or SharePoint has, and also maximize the investment of companies in those platforms. After we talk about those, we're going to see a live demo of expense report workflow being automated using Nintex, and then we will talk about next steps after that. Okay, so why automate business processes? As I'm sure you all know, the business form of today is constantly evolving, and more companies are moving toward electronic forms. And as they need to be able to access those forms on any devices that they have, like desktop, laptops, and mobile devices, there's an increasing demand for cross-platform and functional forms and workflow solutions in the market. Also, as we all know, forms are also evolving, and they're no longer a single structured document, and actually they're moving more toward a complicated interface that is used for collecting data through the enterprise processes and workflows. So with having said that, many enterprises are actually facing the increasing demands of digitizing their forms and automating their workflows so they can stay competitive in the market, and also they can save time and operational costs. So having said all of that, this webinar is actually designed around providing an understanding to you guys as far as how to approach business process automation, what are the platforms and tools and techniques out there, and how Nintex can help doing it very quickly and easily, and work just like a point-and-click solution. Let's just talk about a little bit about the benefits of automating business processes. As we just mentioned, forms are usually a part of a bigger picture. They're not just there standalone by themselves. They're usually part of a workflow or a process. And no matter how small the form is or how little the data is being captured, there is usually a process or a workflow running behind a form. So automating those processes actually introduces a lot of benefits to organizations. Some of the noteworthy ones would be actually saving time and cost, because those processes are automated, so there is no need for a human body to kind of sit there and run those processes manually. And by doing that, you're basically increasing the efficiency of your organization and increasing the productivity of your team. So that will allow your team to spend more time on more complicated tasks and leave the repetitive and manual processes to the automation. Again, another benefit of using automation would be reducing the manual errors and increasing efficiency. And you see a little diagram here. As you see, again, we usually processes start with a form capturing the data, but then it goes through like a workflow of integrating that data with other things, validating that information, sending it through an approval process, and then finalizing and ending the process. So again, the point in this slide is that forms are actually just a part of like a back-end process that can be very easily automated. Okay, I'm going to hand it over to Anjali from here. And she will talk about how Office 365 and SharePoint are helping us provide a platform for some business process automation.
All right. Thank you, Nushin. Anjali here again. And so on this slide, what you see on the left part of your slide is a visualization what SharePoint or Office 365 natively provides out of the box. So as you can see, although it typically gets used as a document management system from what I've seen in a lot of different organizations, the abilities that what SharePoint can do out of the box, it's not limited to just that. It's also a collaboration platform, but more importantly, it's your business enablement platform. It gives you all the framework you need to build upon applications and automate your business processes. So it's very important for you to tap into that potential that SharePoint offers and capitalize on all of the functionality and features it provides so that you can maximize the benefits you are getting out of the platform. So if you look at all this and adding on to what Nushin just mentioned in the previous slide, when you go down this path of automating your business process and workflows, you're saving your time and expense, obviously, because you're reducing a lot of human errors that come out of it. When that happens, it improves your business efficiency. And more importantly, you have already done this investment on this platform. So when you're doing all of this, in effect, what you're doing is you're completely maximizing your SharePoint return on investment. And therefore, we highly recommend when we speak to a lot of clients, we highly recommend to tap into all of the functionality that SharePoint offers and not just use it as just a document system or a collaboration portal system. So the next, since this webinar is about Nintex, over the next couple of slides, I'm just going to briefly touch upon what are your options. Okay, yes, we want to automate your business process, but what can I do natively out of what SharePoint offers? So I want to touch upon that, and then hopefully it will give you some context of where Nintex comes into play and how it is going to be adding more value than what's already available. So in this slide, what you see are your options that are available for forms and workflows. Now, depending on how familiar you are with this platform and if you've been working with it for a while now, some of these options listed here will be very familiar to you. You may have come across it. And especially on the forms, the first one I've listed here is InfoPath form, and it's actually quite popular and well known in the SharePoint community. And even to this day, it's actually widely used. So InfoPath is part of your Office suite. If you have your Word and Excel, and if your administration team in your IT department has allowed the installation, then you'll see InfoPath as part of that. So InfoPath is quite powerful in terms of it allows you to customize the form in a way that's suited for your company, with including the branding. You can also connect it to various data that's inside the SharePoint, and you can basically do a whole lot of customization and apply some business logic and submit your form solution. So it was widely popular until the 2010-2013 version was, until there was an alternative. The other one I've listed here is the native list forms. Now, native list forms are nothing but the forms that you see when you actually create a SharePoint list, what you see out of the box. It doesn't matter which version of SharePoint you're running. Now, these lists are, you really don't have a whole lot of ability on what you can do in terms of business logic. You're just limited to what it provides out of the box. If you have some technical team, people on your staff, then you can, of course, put some JavaScripting and do a little bit of enhancement, but you're mostly limited on what you can do. The last one I've listed, there is Power Apps. I really won't get too much into it in this webinar. That kind of its own talk. But that's the latest service offering that Microsoft provides, and it's only available in your SharePoint Online, which is part of Office 365. And Power Apps also allows you to build form solutions, although it's really not a one-to-one comparison to the native form options that we have, nor is it a replacement, but it does let you do some of the form solutions. And on the workflows, I have 4 of them listed here. At the very basic simple form is out-of-the-box workflow, and these workflows will allow you to do simple approval workflows that go from maybe 2 steps or maybe 3 steps. There's really not any customization you can do on site and beyond that. Now, if your workflow is slightly more complex, you need some level of customization, you can leverage a tool called SharePoint Designer. It was very popular in most of the on-premise versions. And you can do fairly complex customization using Designer, although it doesn't really fit into an enterprise tool kind of a model. You will hit limitations very quickly if your business process starts becoming complex. But it's a free end user tool. You can install it, and for all simple requirements, you can continue to leverage that. Microsoft Flow is recent. It's actually the general availability only came out end of last year. And again, this is a tool that's only available in Office 365 and SharePoint Online. It's not supported in any on-premise version. There are some level of workflows that you can build, especially if you have a business requirement where SharePoint is talking to an external system. It could be Facebook, it could be one of the social media, or it could be one of your other technical systems like a CRM. Flow comes into play, and there's a lot of capabilities it has out of the box. The last one I wanted to mention here is Visual Studio. Now, no matter how complex your business process is, you can implement it using Visual Studio. It lets you do anything and everything you want to the extent you want to build it. But it's very, very important to note that this is a developer tool. You are completely dependent on your IT organization to be able to use this tool, because can be used by only someone who is very skilled technically to be able to use it. So now, considering that we have talked about all of these tools, let's look at why can we not just use this or use some combination of this. Now, I won't go through every bullet point that I've listed here. It's something that you can review as we share the slides. But to speak to it at a very high level, what is it that's lacking, and why can't we just keep leveraging these tools? So if you were to pick one of the tools that's not Visual Studio, it's something that it offers. And to mention, all of these tools are free. You don't have to pay for anything. If you are a Microsoft, if you subscribe to Office 365 and you're a Microsoft customer, you do get all of these tools. So what happens is all of these tools are free, but you are very limited in what you can do. And it only meets a certain set of requirements and only customize it to a certain degree. The moment your business processes start getting a little bit more complex, you'll start seeing that these tools don't support what you want to do. And additionally, the other main important thing I want to mention is today we live in a world of mobile devices. We are really not sitting in an office space all the time in front of a laptop or your desktop. You want to have a space where you can attend to all these business on your mobile device, and so the tools that here cannot support that. Now, lastly, yes, this would start to be one of them. Mentioned earlier, you have to rely on your IT department. And typically, what happens is when you do that, IT becomes the bottleneck, because typically most organizations don't have a very large IT organization. So you have to essentially wait until you are able to do that, and it becomes expensive both in terms of time, resource, cost, everything, because you can't roll out solutions in a quick kind of fashion that you would like to do. And that's really where Nintex comes into play. And over the next few slides, hopefully we can demonstrate better how Nintex becomes so powerful and how impactful it is to your organization.
Okay, thank you, Anjali. If I may just interrupt for a second and ask everybody again to mute your phone, please, so we don't pick up any background noise. Okay, so let's look at this slide. So Anjali kind of walked you guys through what Office 365 and SharePoint offers for business process automation, and then she also talked about what are the gaps and what are the areas that there are not sufficient tools and functionality for business users to actually be able to automate their processes easily. And that's why we wanted to do that introduction to Nintex and kind of talk about how Nintex comes in and fills in that gap that those platforms have. On the right-hand side, you see a little diagram here, and the main point of this diagram is actually to emphasize that there are three pillars into improving and automating business processes: people, process, and content. And I'm sure everybody agrees with me that the most valuable asset that every organization has is actually their people and is their content. So what processes do, processes actually come in and connect those people with those content. so there's the business can be done and the team can actually do their work. So the whole point of this diagram is that by having a business process automation tool such as Nintex, organizations will be able to highlight and fill the gap between the people, the processes, and content using some of the technology tools and functions that are provided using these platforms. So who is Nintex? Nintex is one of the world leaders in software and cloud services that specializes in automating business processes. As you see, they're a quite large company. They have thousands of customers, and they have over 1,000 partners, us, Optimum being one of them, proudly, that actually help clients implement Nintex and use them in the daily day-to-day business process automation. There are over 90 plus countries, and they have millions of licensed users. What we are finding out is that a lot of large and small companies actually utilize Nintex, whether you know it or not. Your company is probably has it in the back end and somehow is automating the workflows using Nintex. So a lot of companies who do have SharePoint and Office 365, they're also already a Nintex partner or could be a potential Nintex customer. Okay. What is the value of Nintex? And I'm going to pass it on to Anjali to talk over this slide for us.
Okay, so to demonstrate the value of Nintex, I've taken an example of a simple expense approval process here. The diagram, the visualization is what you can see on the screen. Now, I'm sure a lot of people here on the call, you can relate to a process, equivalent process in your organization. In this case, I've taken an example of expense, but you'll probably have many such processes where it has to go through multi-layered approval process and it has to change hands between people. So in this case, we have an initiator who has to submit a travel expense every time he does a business travel. And then the example I've taken is it gets routed to his manager. The manager has an option to either return it back to the initiator if there is any changes missing, or he can pass it on for approval to the next step, which goes to the accounting team, or he can just outright reject it. And again, if manager approves this, it goes to the accounting as a final approval process. And if they approve it, the process gets approved. But again, they also have an option to either reject it or send it back to the manager. So if I look at what are my options to do this, so the first three I've listed here are what we just looked at in one of the previous slides. You have the out-of-the-box tools in SharePoint. Can we do it using that? We have a SharePoint designer with Info Platform. We have Visual Studio, and the last one I've listed is Nintex sponsor approval. Now, if I look at out-of-the-box tools for SharePoint, no, it's absolutely not possible. Now, if you look at this process by itself is not very much complicated, right? It just goes from one step to the second step to the third step. What makes it complex from an implementation standpoint is the fact that this is not a linear process. It is something where a person who has an action can route it back to the previous person who had the action. So it's basically non-linear, and in technical terms, we call this as a state machine workflow. And when you get into state machine workflow, and it's extremely common to have state machine workflows in an organization, pretty much any business process you take, very rarely it's a linear process, usually a non-linear process, and it keeps going back and forth. So when you do something like this out of the box, no, it absolutely does not support it. Now, our next option is to use SharePoint Designer with Info Platform. Now, on this, you can say, yes, in some cases we can do it, in some cases it's not. So if you have a SharePoint version, which is 2013 or newer, you have 2013 or 2016, then Designer has gone through a lot of improvements, and there are some, and you can build something like this. But again, I've eliminated this as an option because if you have one of those older versions, you cannot do it. And if your requirements even become slightly more complex at this step, then Designer cannot scale at that point, and neither does it support mobile functionality in terms of being able to handle the approval process on your device. So for a lot of things, it's quite limited, and in only small cases you can use it. So basically what we are left with at the end of this are two options, Visual Studio and Nintex, and those are really our two options. At the table next one, I've just compared and contrasted how much of effort, more of an effort it is if you would go down to the Visual Studio route. And in the world we live in today, having a mobility support, being able to integrate your approvals with your Outlook, because most people are spending most of the time in their email, and so ability to do that, ability to scale your workflows, all of these become like basic requirements. They're no longer a nice to have kind of features. And if you were to compare and contrast the ability to build this with Visual Studio versus Nintex, you can see that it's all custom functionality in Visual Studio, whereas it's all point and click in terms of Nintex. So essentially what that means is you are eliminating your IT bottleneck. You can train an end business user to be able to build something like this fairly quickly without having to wait for a skilled developer to be available. So essentially what happens is you are bringing down the cost to a fraction of a cost. So something like this in Nintex would take you less than a day to build, especially if you have gotten more and more comfortable, you can build in a matter of 4 hours actually. But something like this to build in Visual Studio will take you weeks of effort, and sometimes it can even be months depending on how complex your processes are for you to deploy your custom build solutions. So hopefully this actually demonstrates why Nintex is so impactful and how you can really maximize the benefits and really start rolling out application at a much faster rate than what you would traditionally do.
Great, thank you, Anjali. So just to follow up on what she said, actually there was a research done by Forrester few years back where they deployed Nintex for some of the organizations, and then they started measuring some of the benefits of using Nintex for organizations, and the results are impressive. As you see here, what was reported was that organizations had 176% ROI using Nintex, and the payback was in 10.5 months. They were also able to increase the productivity of their employees by 8 to 15%, and they avoided custom coding. So what we're trying to say here is that Nintex is a very powerful business user. Again, as Anjali mentioned, that can be rolled out and used without being heavily dependent on IT organizations and developers. And as you see, it's proven that it increases the productivity and reduces organization costs, and the ROI is super high. Okay, having said that, we are going to look at a real-life scenario of the business expense report form being automated using Nintex, and the platform behind it is Office 365. So here you can see Nintex and Office 365 in action as far as how a business process can be automated. I'm going to switch and show you guys the video. This has been recorded as a video because we didn't want to deal with live demo complexity of if the internet connection is lost or something. But Anjali is going to talk over that video for us and let you guys know as far as the steps that we're taking. So bear with me for a second as I launch the video here. Okay.
All right. So this is going back to the same expense approval example we took. We discussed a few seconds ago, and it's the same. It's like an example of a finance portal that we have created to demonstrate that. So we have different tiles on the left side of the screen where a user can come in and he can either submit his expenses, or if he's a manager, he can see the approvals that are waiting on him, or he can track all his previous expenses. Now, I do want to mention that everything you see here, and including the demo, there has not been a single line of code written anywhere. They're all out-of-the-box capabilities that Chipmon Online offers, or it's the point-and-click capabilities that Nintex offers. There is nothing that is in here that require a developer skill set. So on the right side, you see the expense approval process in here. We have an initiator, and we have a manager, and we have an accounting team. And then the process is exactly what I described here. The initiator submits, it goes to the manager, and the manager has an option to return it back to the initiator if there's any information missing, or if he thinks it's all good, he can send it to the accounting team. And then when it goes to the accounting team, again, he has the same option to either send it back or reject it or approve it. It basically ends the process.
Sorry to interrupt. I just want to make sure everybody can still see our screen. Can you just unmute your phone and let me know if you can see the screen, please?
Yes, I do.
Yes, I see the screen.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So for the purposes of today's demo, we're going to take one particular scenario where the initiator submits a new expense form. It goes to the manager. And I do want to demonstrate the state machine concept I described earlier. So the manager sends it back to the initiator. And so we have a looping that goes on right there. Then again, it finally comes back to the manager. Manager sends it to the accounting, and that is how the process gets completed. So we're going to go through that full cycle of process. So we're going to start with submitting an expense form, and that can be done by clicking on the tile there. Now what this does is it actually brings up the expense form where the user can put in his request. Wait for the form to load up. And while the form is going to load, I do want to mention that, again, you have the ability to customize this form to anything that you would want to. You can make it look and feel like the branding of your organization. You can add any field. In this case, we have kept it simple. We have a title, we have a summary description, and we have a section where you can add your receipts as an attachment, depending on what your business logic is. If you have receipts that you need to add only above a certain expense number. And then at the bottom of the form, we have sections where you can put in your expense type and your expense date and the amount. So we're just going to add a couple of sample expenses here to see how that would work. And we have, again, customized a bottom section of this area to show you that we have the expense gets totaled. And again, you have those X marks at the right side if you have to remove an expense. That's how you can do that. So once your expense form is completed, you can hit the save button. And in this case, the way it's been set up is as soon as an expense form is submitted, the workflow kicks off, which means the expense routing process now begins. So the first thing we will see is we have set up an email. So the initiator, the person who submitted the form, gets an email that we received your expense submission, and it also tells you that yes, as a next step, we're going to route this to your manager. Again, all of these emails are fully customizable. You can add any number of recipients you want. You can customize the verbiage. You can tailor it to your needs. So again, when we go back to the site, we have a section here where users can track and review their expenses. So as you can see, when you refresh the page, you can see that there is a task that has now gotten created for the manager and saying a new expense request has been submitted. So the manager can come in. Yeah. So one point I do want to note is to make the demo simple, we have set ourselves up as manager, as initiator, and also as part of the accounting team so that we don't have to log in and log back as different users, but the experience is going to be exactly the same because in a practical scenario, you will have different people touching it, and so you can set it up to make sure that it goes to the appropriate person. So in here, the manager gets the form and he goes and edits it. And so what you see here when the form opens is a task approval form where the manager gets to see all the different outcomes or what are the different options he can take. So he has an approved or he has a return to initiator or rejected. And so we wanted to show how it gets rerouted back. So we have selected the return to initiator option. Now again, we have customized this form to show the original expense form. So before he approves it, if he wants to see what was initially submitted, and then you can do that as well. So it opens a new window and you can see the original expense form that was actually put in. And so he comes back to this form and he says, okay, there's some information missing, whatever that might be. And so he clicks on OK. And basically what happens at this step is now it goes back one step and it kicks it back to the initiator saying, hey, you have to take some action on the form. So what will happen now is when we go and refresh the screen, you're going to see that a task now again gets initiated and gets created for the person who initiated or the person who submitted the form.
And as Anjali has set herself up as initiator as well, so now she's going to see that being assigned to her back on the same screen.
Excuse me, I have a question. Like the question session is in the last.
Yes, and if you would please type in your question in the chat box, and then we will get to it at the end.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so here is the task that was sent back to the initiator, and I set myself up there. And so again, I'm presented with a screen which is very similar to what the manager saw, but then my outcomes here are different because I don't have an option to return it back. So I can either submit it, which basically sends it back to my manager, or I can withdraw it. Withdraw basically kills the process and says, okay, this workflow has ended. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and submit the form, and which means it will create a task back to the manager. Now we haven't customized this. There are still other options to make it even more user-friendly. So you can display a log of all of the actions that are taken right here on the form. So users have one view of everything they want to see regarding the process. So you can do all of that as well. It's totally supported. So now that the user has submitted and made the changes, now you will see that a task now has gone back to his manager, and the manager now again has the ability to take action on the form. Okay, so here it is. The task again came back to the manager. Now, in this case, we're going to show you what's called as a lazy approval. Basically, this is a functionality that's available in Nintex, where you don't have to actually go to the SharePoint site and access the task form for you to do the approval. You can do it directly from your email. So what happens is you get an email like this, and I have not really customized this email at all. You can customize it to whatever verbiage you want, but you're presented with the same options in the email itself as the actions that you can take. And so in this case, all the manager has to do is he can hit the reply button, and he has to type in the action that he wants to take. In this case, we're going to approve it because we wanted to route it forward because it's already gone through one cycle of changes. So he clicks and approved, and he clicks the send and hits the send button. Now, this is a very powerful and very important feature of Nintex because the manager could be traveling. He might not be having access to the SharePoint site based on wherever he's located, but he doesn't need one. All he needs access is to his email, and he can just type in the response in the email, and Nintex on behind the scenes picks it up and then processes it. So basically where we are right now is the manager has approved it, and this time he's taken the action by lazy approval, and now it's going to get routed to the accounting department. So if you refresh the screen now, we'll see that it has gone to the final branch of your approval process, and the accounting team has got it at this point. So the accounting team, again, I've set myself up in the accounting team security group as well. So again, I'm going to see it, and I have the ability to take action for simplicity purposes. So now the accounting team will open up the form, and in this case, again, we're showing the approval form and not by email. And he clicks approve, and they click approve. And this is basically the last step of the process and basically ends it. What happens now is the entire process is approved, and we set it up for the initiator to get an email saying your expense form was approved and the process gets complete. When the task is executed, you see that the task no longer is on this page. It has been picked up by the processing, and you can see that the email came through, which says that the finance report has been approved, and you can customize the email to notify everyone who was involved in the email chain. In this case, it's just kept it simple and notified the user that your expense approval has been approved. So that demonstrates how this is done. Again, to stress the fact, there was not a single line of code written, and for somebody who is well-versed on it, you can set something up in just a matter of few hours. So I'll pass this on to Nishan from here, so she can speak to the rest of the presentation.
Sure. Thank you so much, Ashley. So again, the whole point of that demo was to show you guys that how very quickly and just with drag and drop, Nintex can automate some of the very common business processes such as expense report. There are other processes that could be very easily automated with Nintex, such as employee travel requests, training requests, a lot of the HR processes, and a lot of IT ticket submitting processes can be just the same, can be automated very quickly and without any need for coding. So just to provide some highlights from what we saw on the demo, as we mentioned, the whole thing that you saw, the whole process automation is also supported on mobile platforms and tablets with Nintex, so you don't have to worry about this is only a web-based solution. Nintex fully supports mobile and tablet. And again, there is advanced branding capabilities available, so you can put your logo, you can put your company's color and branding and verbiage in there. It's very secure. The security is a big portion of the Nintex, although it's on the cloud Office 365, but again, Nintex solutions are secured. And then it also very seamlessly integrates with some other third-party applications that are available in the market. We didn't show that in the demo, but we have a slide that talks about what tools and platforms Nintex integrates with, and then you can see that this is such a powerful platform for automating your business processes. Here we're just showing you a screenshot of how the whole workflow that you just saw was developed. As you see, there is an interface here that you just drag and drop items to and configure your workflow. This could be easily done by a business analyst or a project manager or somebody on the business side. And again, you will not need any IT dependencies for building this. This is a drag and drop platform. Okay, speaking of integrations, these are the solutions and third-party platforms that Nintex integrates with, and that makes it a very powerful tool because, as you can see, you can pretty much hook your Nintex forms and workflows to any of those solutions out there. A lot of clients that we spoke with, they are very interested in integrating with DocuSign or Adobe Sign because that's the solution they use for their contract management and document management. It integrates with Google, SAP 365, OneDrive, and Salesforce. Again, it's a very powerful integration integrated platform with all of those commonly used applications out there. Okay. So we talked about Nintex and how it's enabling Office 365 and SharePoint to provide a more robust and more comprehensive workflow automation solution. As I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, Optimum is a certified partner with Nintex, and we're very proud to be working with them and providing services to clients. On the left-hand side, you'll see the list of services that we offer. We offer consultation for organizations just to assess and see if Nintex is something that is right for them and if it's something that can actually help them solve some of their business problems. We can help your team with documentation of what you need to do in Nintex before you do even any implementation. We can help you with that implementation and integration of Nintex, provide licensing and pricing to you guys, and also provide Nintex training. So one thing that I want to mention before we end the webinar is that although what you see looks like a very powerful tool that can do a lot, I will mention to you that Nintex is actually a very cost-effective solution. So a lot of small-sized organizations are actually capable of affording Nintex. Compared to other solutions that are out there in the market, we feel like it's a very cost-effective, very affordable solution, and it empowers business users big time in their day-to-day business processes. What we're offering as part of our Nintex services is a complimentary workshop with your organization. So we would come in, we bring our Nintex and Office 365 SharePoint consultants, certified consultants to your office. We will sit down with you and talk about if and how you can utilize Nintex and what scenarios make sense to be automated in your organization. And then after that, we go back and provide a prototype or a proof of concept for you at a discounted rate, just so that you can see that Nintex can help your organization, just so you can see it in action working for your business. And if you're ready to move forward with that, then we will provide a 30-day free trial of Nintex, so your people can actually work with it and play around and make sure this is the right solution for them. And also we can help you with the proposal and pricing and licensing at the end. Okay, with that said, I'm going to open the floor for any questions. Again, we can look at the chat box and see if there was any questions submitted, or if you guys would like to. I'm trying to make sure we're still. Yes, let me look at the questions that were submitted and see if we can answer them. All right, I'm actually going to have Chantal ask the question, please. If you can unmute your phone and ask the question, so we can, and we're going to try to answer them. If it's a very technical question, then we'll get back with you after the webinar.
Yes. Okay. Like I was going through the workflow, and we have certain people in the workflow, like manager, accountant, or any other system analyst or somebody. And the workflow has so many pieces in there, and if one of the person is not available or not responding to, we have a time limit on every execution. So in case if the user doesn't respond, can we push that to the next level of the workflow?
Yeah, and
without him being responding.
Yeah, so you have all of those customization options available in Nintex. You can say wait for X number of days, 30 days, or whatever that might be, that number. And you can specify what action needs to be taken after those number of days. Should it go to somebody else, or do you want to stop the process, or what needs to happen? And additionally, if you have another way of doing this is, if there is a manager that needs to approve, you can have that as part of a SharePoint security group. So you can add multiple people in that group. So that way it's not just waiting on one person to approve. You can do that as well. But of course, Nintex definitely has ways. But if it always has to go to the manager, that's your direct line manager, then you can definitely have those kind of customization setup saying if there's no response after X number of days, then what action you need to take.
Yeah, that's a very good question. As you have the option to send a request to a group of people that are part of the security group, and then you have the capability of mentioning with Nintex that if you would need everybody in that user group to approve the request, or if the first person approves that it's good enough and it can move forward. So it's very customizable, very configurable as far as what are the settings for the approval process.
Okay, thank you. And one more question on the other line is like, we have certain documents that have to be those are like deliverables for us. And we are a health department, and we have some deliverables that need to be done in a certain period of time through the CDC. So the CDC has its own software, which I'm not sure of the integration yet, but like we wanted to see if it can happen with Nintex, so that whenever the CDC updates its rules, our documents have to be compared with them and satisfy those deliverables. Can we customize to certain level?
Okay, thanks for the question. And I would say because it's very specific to your department, let us get back with you on that, and we'll be happy to set up a session with you and kind of walk over the requirements that you have, and then see if Nintex is something that can help you with that process.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the group? Okay, if there are no further questions, we're going to end the call. Again, as always, feel free to reach out with reach out to us with the email address that's provided below, and then we're also going to be sending you guys the recorded webinar within the next few days. All right.
Sure, I appreciate that. Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thanks, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Have a good day.